You're portrayed as this relentlessly optimistic macro thinker, but you would say, hey, I'm just looking at where the data is going.
Indeed, and the view of the world you get from data is different from the one you get from journalism, because journalism is a non-random sample of the most dramatic, usually the worst things that happen on Earth on a given day. A lot of the positive developments are either things that don't happen, like there's a country where a war did not break out, a city that has not been attacked by terrorists, or things that unfold gradually, a few percentage points a year, which can compound. But there's never a Thursday in October in which it's a headline. And so if you don't look at data, if you look at headlines, since as long as bad things haven't vanished from the face of the earth, which they never will, you can get the impression that things are unchanged or even are worse than ever, even when they're improving. It's only when you count the number of wars, number of deaths in war, longevity, child mortality, extreme poverty, number of leisure hours, that you see that there actually has been improvement, a fact that you can miss if you just follow the headlines.
Life expectancy, infant mortality, education rates, I mean, almost all of those things, if you look over the last, say, 50 years, unprecedented improvement in the human condition.
Indeed. And it's not magic. It doesn't happen everywhere all the time. Some things do get worse sometimes, because the world does not contain any force that just lifts humanity up. Quite the contrary, the laws of the universe kind of grind us down. It's only when people apply their ingenuity to try to improve the human condition that every once in a while we succeed. If we try not to repeat our mistakes, then progress is possible on average, but not everywhere always.
Since you and I were kids, what are a couple of individual data points, things that have happened that feel the most like magic compared to who you were at that point?
The decline in extreme poverty would have to be one of them. Global poverty now is estimated to be maybe 8 or 9% of the world's population. 200 years ago, it was 90% of the world's population. And even 30 years ago, there were 1 billion more extremely poor people than there are today. So that would be way up there. Illiteracy, probably today among young people, maybe 10% are illiterate. It used to be more than half. Even number of wars, and notwithstanding the horrific war in Ukraine, the war in Sudan, the recently concluded war in Ethiopia, which has led to an uptick in the wrong direction. But if you compare the number of wars and the number of people killed in wars in the 60s and the 70s and even the 80s, we're actually much better off today.
Are there any particular turning points that you would point to? I mean, is it the semiconductor? Is it the internet? Is it people just having mobility they didn't have before? What are the things that facilitated that?
Globalization probably had something to do with it. All of these things are statistical, probabilistic. You can always find exceptions. But generally, if the world is more knitted together in commerce, if you get rich by buying things instead of stealing them, if you have customers that you don't want to kill, if you belong to a club of trading nations, it doesn't guarantee that you won't go to war, but it lowers the odds, it changes the incentives. The fact that wealth no longer comes from land, as it did a couple of hundred years ago. If you want to get rich, you don't need more and more and more farmland, but better tech, more knowledge. Rise of democracy, not a perfect guarantor of peace by any means, but seems to be
and not moving in the right direction now.
And not moving in the right direction now, but statistically is a contributor to peace. Also, it's hard to kind of put your finger on this vague thing called norms, expectations, values, but there's probably less of an emphasis on, in most of the world, or in much of the world, on national glory, preeminence, and more on human well-being. That is, nations are somewhat more interested in keeping their citizens educated and rich and well-fed compared to having more square inches on a map.
Now, you sound very Canadian when you say that.
Yes.
Which you are.
Which I am.